Viewer discretion is advised.
Boom, perfect timing.
Adam Trammell was a 22-year-old man from West Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and also had bipolar disorder. He lived alone in an apartment and was known to have periodic mental health episodes. A neighbor called 911 after noticing water flooding from Trammell's apartment and reported that a man inside, believed to be Adam, was yelling loudly and behaving erratically.
West Milwaukee Police.
There's a young man here who I think he has a psychotic break. He's standing naked in the hallway.
Is he just naked, nothing else? He doesn't have any weapons or anything in his hand?
No, he doesn't have any weapons. Now he just shut the door now. He's saying something about the devil and his brother.
West Milwaukee police officers Anthony Munoz and Michael Rohleder were dispatched to the scene. Officers forced their way into Adam's locked apartment without a warrant, citing exigent circumstances due to his behavior and the water damage. Inside, they found Adam Trammell naked in the shower, appearing confused and nonverbal. Without successful verbal engagement or de-escalation efforts, officers Munoz and Rohleder deployed their tasers on Adam, who was sitting or crouching in the tub. Adam did not appear to pose an immediate threat. He was unarmed, naked, and in a disoriented mental state. Over the next 10 minutes, Adam was tased at least 15 times by both officers.
He did say he was going to kill himself, so I don't know. When did you say that? When I was up here. And he said, then he also said, am I going to go to heaven? You heard that. I know you heard that. Go get the door. Open the door. We're going to have to force our way. We don't want to do that. Hold on with it. Step away from the door. Brandon, we need to see your hands. Brandon, we just want to make sure you're okay. Let me see your hands.
Come on.
All right, hands.
You're not listening.
Hands, Brandon. Just come on out, okay? Come on out. Come on out. Come on out, okay? Brandon. Brandon. Come on out. What's wrong? All right. I need you to come on out. Brandon, I need you to come on out. Brandon.
Listen to what he's telling you.
You're gonna get tased.
Officers gave repeated conflicting commands while Adam writhed in pain and tried to move away. He was eventually pulled from the tub, still naked and clearly in distress. After being partially subdued, officers continued to shock him even after he was handcuffed. Officer Danielle Engen was also present during the incident, but failed to intervene or stop the repeated taser use, despite guidelines advising caution with prolonged or repeated tasing. After repeated shocks, Adam became unresponsive. Officers called for emergency medical services. Adam Trammell was transported to a local hospital, but was pronounced dead shortly thereafter.
relax, okay? Just relax. Just relax.
Brandon, you don't want to do that again, do you?
Brandon, I need you to come out slowly, okay? Otherwise, you're going to get tased again, okay? I can't have you swinging at me. I need to make sure you're okay, but I need to make sure I'm okay as well. Relax.
Hit him again. Hit him again.
Relax.
Put your... Get in.
Just relax.
Get down. No.
Just relax. You got my taser. You got my taser. Just relax.
Okay, listen. You need to listen to us now, buddy, okay?
Medical evaluation or
Do we have a thigh that we can access? Or another shoulder? Beautiful.
Yeah, you have a phone, Danny?
They have it right now.
That's the ID that you gave is...
That's one that was in the tub. Yeah.
The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner ruled Adams' cause of death as excited delirium, a controversial term not recognized by the American Medical Association or American Psychiatric Association. The autopsy revealed no illegal drugs in Adams' system. In March 2018, Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm announced that no officers would be criminally charged. Chisholm stated that the use of force did not meet the legal threshold for criminal prosecution.
Now the district attorney has decided no charges will be filed against the officers involved. In a letter to the West Milwaukee police chief, the district attorney says there is no basis to conclusively link Mr. Trammell's death to actions taken by the police officers. Authorities at the time of the incident said they were responding to a report of a man inside an apartment building, naked, speaking incoherently, and flooding his unit. When officers confronted the man, he became combative and a taser was used. The officers involved are Corporal Michael Rohleder and Officer Anthony Munoz. Trammell's family has hired attorney Robin Shello. The family plans on filing a civil rights lawsuit against the West Milwaukee Police Department. Out of respect for the family, she declined to do interviews on Friday. The letter sent by the district attorney goes on to say that the decision came after a review of body camera footage, training policies, and speaking with medical experts. An autopsy for the 22-year-old concluded his cause of death was excited delirium, and the manner of the death was undetermined. In a statement, the West Milwaukee police chief says, quote, "Obviously, we're happy that it's done. It took a while. There's a lot of things that needed to be looked at. This was not a shooting type case. Our intent was to help this young man. We feel for the family."
After weeks of trying, we finally managed to speak, on the phone at least, to the district attorney who ruled Adam did not die as a result of the actions of the officers who tased him numerous times.
They're not doing this because they wanted to harm Adam. It's the exact opposite, right?
But it doesn't look like that, does it?
But it does, though. Their expressed intent any number of times is that they were there to help him, that they wanted to get him out of that
they kept saying
situation.
That as they tased him.
Right, because they had to get him under control so that they could get him to some medical attention.
You're saying that it was not unreasonable that they tased him?
That's correct. Not based on their training.
Trammell's family would file a wrongful death lawsuit. In June 2019, the village of West Milwaukee agreed to pay a $2.5 million settlement to Adam's family.
Where is the imminent danger? There was none. And to know that he suffered like that for no reason at all. He didn't deserve it at all.
You done tased him 15 times. He's in the tub. There's no big threat like he was saying. Oh, no, we wait for backup. He's laying in the tub, dying.
It was later revealed that officers Munoz and Rohleder had not received updated taser training since 2011, violating manufacturer recommendations for annual recertification. Adam Trammell's death wasn't a tragic accident. It was the predictable result of negligence, outdated training, and a culture of impunity. He was unarmed, naked, and suffering a mental health crisis, not committing a crime. Yet officers Anthony Munoz and Michael Rohleder responded not with compassion or care, but with violence, tasing Adam over a dozen times, even while he was handcuffed. Officer Danielle Engen stood by, fully trained and fully aware, and chose silence over intervention. The system that should have protected Adam instead failed him at every level. The officers weren't charged, the policies weren't changed. The only acknowledgement of wrongdoing came in the form of a $2.5 million settlement, paid not by the officers, but by taxpayers. Adam didn't need to die. His life was lost because the people entrusted with protecting the vulnerable treated his illness like a threat, and because no one in power was willing to hold them accountable afterward. If this case teaches us anything, it's that until there is real accountability, real training, and real reform, more people like Adam will die, and their names will be added to a growing list of preventable tragedies.
Now, attorneys for Adam Trammell's family describe his death as being tortured by tasers. A man, they say, who was, quote, unarmed and naked in his own bathroom and accused of no crime. Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm reviewed the case for possible criminal charges against the officers. He found there is not sufficient evidence of either intentional or negligent abuse to support a finding of guilt on the officers' part, and their actions did not violate the law. We will hear from the attorney for Adam Trammell's family, but first we go to John Chisholm in Milwaukee, and thanks very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Why, in your opinion, didn't the actions of the officers rise to the level of criminal charges, even with the amount of tasing described as, quote, wanton cruelty by the family's attorney?
Well, first, I never want to lose the human element, and that is that we always sit down and talk to the family and their representatives, and we understand the pain and the suffering that accompanies tragic incidents like this. At the end of the day, my obligation is to look at all the facts and apply that to the law. And in this particular case, the police were actually summoned not for a criminal offense, but another equally important obligation that they have, which is to help people when they are in medical distress. They're first-line responders. They have an actual obligation, if they receive information, which they did, that this young man was suffering from a mental illness and that he was wandering the hallway naked. They talked to a neighbor who was concerned that he had, quote, a psychotic break, and that she was afraid he was going to hurt himself. So under those circumstances, they actually had an obligation to enter that apartment and make contact with Mr. Trammell. We also look at how they're trained, and one of the ways that they're trained is that if they see signs that the person is in such distress that what they are trained to look for is what they call excited delirium, and that is a significant and dangerous medical condition that requires them to get help for that person. But here's the catch in all of that, Frederica, and that is they can't get help for him until he's calm and he's restrained. In other words, the medical professionals won't actually respond directly to him until they have the situation under control.
Well, as to this excited delirium, I understand that it is not actually recognized as a medical diagnosis, but police protocol says that when confronted with it, officers should avoid increasing the subject's agitation and minimize physical struggle. From your review, would it appear that these officers went against that protocol?
Well, again, the protocols are guidelines, and the bottom line on this case is it was a very complex, almost impossible situation where you had a 240-pound naked man who they were very concerned was showing those signs. It was an extremely confined space, and their intent, as they expressed it, was simply to get him medical attention. It's a dangerous encounter. We just recently, I don't know if you saw the videos from the street encounter in Milwaukee yesterday involving a person that we believe is mentally ill. 4 police officers seriously injured, that person as well. These are always dangerous encounters, but their intent is to get him medical attention as quickly as possible. If they don't, he could potentially die. So in this particular case, we learned, for example, that over an hour after he was deceased, he had a core body temperature of almost 104 degrees, which would mean that at the time that they were encountering Mr. Trammell, he could have been up in the 107, 108 range, and it's medically dangerous if you're anything higher than 103. So they had to do some, and this is the complicated circumstances that they encountered.
Well, what about the idea of using calming techniques or earlier interventions with tranquilizers?
See, again, they're not authorized to administer any kind of sedatives. Only a trained medical person can do that. Their obligation is simply to make the area and the person safe so that the medical people can do that. And in this case, the initial encounter actually resulted in resistance, and that resistance, they had an option of either trying to put compliance holds on him, which would be next to impossible. He was in a shower of wet, drinking hot water at the time. And when they attempted to reach out to him, that's when he pushed their hands away, and that's when they elected to use that electronic control device.
In fact, I understand that first use of that device was to his chest. Isn't that a cardiac danger?
No, actually, when you look at the videotape closely, you'll see that the prongs go into his right upper thigh and his lower abdomen. And so you can actually see that. All of this information, by the way, is posted on the Independent Investigative Agency's site. That was the Greenfield Police Department. We did investigate this according to the protocol that we use to investigate any officer-involved force.
You said that you met extensively with the family of Adam Trammell. What do you say to Adam Trammell's family?
Well, first and foremost, we say how sorry we are for their loss. We understand the pain that comes with this. At the end of the day, my obligation is to provide them with all of the information that I can possibly gather and to follow up on things that they want answered. But in the end, my obligation is to make a determination of whether I would be able to demonstrate beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal setting that the officers engaged in misconduct. Now, the medical examiner found that the cause of death was excited delirium. That in and of itself takes the matter out of the realm of a homicide. So the next question is, did the encounter and the use of the electronic control devices become abusive at some point in time? And there you have to look at whether their training was consistent with the circumstances that they encountered. And now here's one thing that I learned a great deal about with tasers, and that is, even though the amount of recorded deployments, in other words, the number of times they pulled the trigger, seems high, that does not mean that Mr. Trammell received a shock each and every one of those times. And sometimes when the probes get dislodged, all that they receive is pain, but they're not incapacitated. And so it's a very, again, complex circumstance. And then ultimately, what is shown in the video is that Mr. Trammell doesn't actually expire or stop breathing until after he's been brought to medical attention and they administer a sedative. So we can't even demonstrate a direct connection between the use of those ECDs and his ultimate death.
All right, we need to leave it there, but John Chisholm, thanks very much for joining us.